Welcome everyone to the Solar Contractor Technical Training. My name is Athena, and this meeting will be recorded and we will send out the slides at the end of the meeting if anyone needs a reference. With that, let's get started. All right, housekeeping notes. Please mute your mic during the presentation and put any chat or any questions in the chat. We will have question slides, so you're more than welcome to unmute then, but we will also just address any questions that are in the chat during that time, and we'll try to get to them in between slides. But yeah. Questions in the chat. For current project wait times, we've got application to letter of intent, 3 to 4 weeks. DGPA review is about 1 to 2 weeks. Final documentation review, 3 weeks. Inspections, we're at 2 weeks. And then the shutdown wait times are still, depending on location, about 3 months. Again, meeting poll, it's in the chat, to track attendance. And then if you are unable to do or access it in any way, just let us know. We'll go in and try to fix that. All right, okay, so upcoming meeting dates. So our next administrative meeting is September 19th. Then we've got our general meeting, October 17th, and the next technical will be November 21st. So there are those dates there. Make sure you record them. We will send out reminders, of course, with the Teams link. All right, and then registering contractors must attend 1 technical and 1 administrative meeting. All right. So for our safety moment, I want to talk a little bit about vehicle safety. So work injuries resulting from motorized vehicles is like one of the leading causes of work-related injuries. I know it's kind of basic having these general tips here, but they're oh so important. Like, removing distractions while driving, like let's not be texting. If you need to like make a call, pull over. I know that we're all like driving to our sites, driving to work, all of these things, and might be late, whatever's going on. Let's just make sure that we're not distracted. Leaving yourself an out while driving, just be like drive defensively, right? And make sure that if you're seeing something, you have an out, you can get to the shoulder, all of those things. And then always wear your seatbelt. Like, again, very basic, but like so important. Wearing your seatbelt if you are in the event of an accident, you don't want to be thrown from your vehicle. Seatbelts help that for sure. Okay, and then so while on the job, review safety protocols for vehicle safety. So make sure that like, if your tire pressure light is on, that you get that checked out, that you review your manual, all of that stuff. If there is an accident, make sure that you know who to contact. So if you have to talk to your supervisor, if there's a safety team that you need to talk to, 911 if that's appropriate. All of those things, make sure that you know them, and then if there is an accident, that you do those proper procedures. And then lastly, document anything. Even this is good for even like your personal life. Take pictures, make sure that you get all the information that you need, insurance, stuff like that. Make sure your insurance is in your car. I know a little bit basic of things, but super, super important for vehicle safety. And then the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, they put this out here, and you can see that red line there. Transportation incidents are by far the most occurring fatal incidents there. So, and this was in 2022, their latest study. All right, with that, announcements. All right, I'm gonna pass it over. Oh, sorry, marketing first. So we have a new initiative for marketing. We've launched its summer anti-campaign scam. So it just highlights that we have our solar education course for residential rebates, and like anybody can take these, but specifically for residential rebates, they will need to take the solar education course. And it's mostly just to like engage our community. If you are talking to some people, you can point them to our tips for avoiding scams. It's just some great resources for you all to be aware of. Please use them at your leisure. All right, and now passing it to Megan. Thank you.
Thanks, Athena. Good morning, everybody. So inspection pass rates, how did that look for last quarter and how does it look this quarter so far? So for FY24 Q3, we had a 79% pass rate for all final solar inspections. That's pretty good. I think it did go down from about 84%. So went down just a little bit there, but still over that 75% threshold for the rebate program. So good job there. Q4 so far and FY24 is 77%. So just keep that in mind. A couple things that you can do to help pass inspections is schedule those pre-construction meetings. Those are optional for residential programs or projects and mandatory for commercial projects. So just keep that in mind that that is always available if and when you should need it. There's also the checklist and the interconnection guide, pages 76 to 79. Make sure you're going through those and walking through those on your projects before you schedule that inspection. And then, of course, attending these trainings will also help. And then just going to skip out the little bit. Inspection attendance, just keep in mind that it's required for final inspections and not required for residential rough-ends or meter checks. However, if we cannot access the equipment, we will need you there to help us get in. If we can't get in and access it, or if you guys don't show up to a final inspection, that is considered a failed inspection. So keep that in mind. And then if you can, please give us at least 24 hours of notice for a cancellation. If you don't, that'll be considered a failed inspection. All righty, next slide, please. Okay, line side tap requirements. So we have gone through this a couple times. If you guys have questions, of course, always reach out to the Solar Inspections at Austin Energy inbox. But as of November 1st last year, we adopted NEC 2023. So we're now enforcing 2030.46. Again, not going to read through this here, but just keep that in mind and please keep continuing to make sure your projects are ready and are up to NEC standards. All right, next slide, please. All right, couple of updates here. So we had talked about panel recycling, I think last September, and then a little bit more this spring. Unfortunately, there's still not any specific company names that we can give to you. We've kind of talked about that, and we don't want to show favorship or favoritism to any of those one companies. However, there are tons and tons of options if you guys want to recycle solar panels. And just to kind of talk about what we talked about at one of these last time, there are small, medium, large recycling plants. They have various costs in mind, but there are ways to get just a couple of panels locally to a recycling center so they can be stripped for parts and, reused basically. If you have, maybe 10 or more panels, I would consider looking into some other recycling centers just to make sure that they're going to be able to accommodate that load. However, that said, Austin Resource Recovery is partnering with Austin Energy to address a city council directive to provide energy storage system and panel recycling info to Austin residents. So coming soon to the AR website, we will have info on what to do with batteries that need to be turned in at their end of life. So please do keep an eye out for that. We're planning to put it on the what to do with batteries and other hard to recycle items page. So you guys can consult that page as often as needed. And please feel free to point customers to that page as well. But you should see some updates there in the next couple months. Also, I'll just point out there's a really cool what do I do with tool. This is something that ARR brought up to us in our discussions. So if you guys have weird, questions from customers or weird things that you need to look at getting recycled, please do feel free to use that resource. It is already available and can be really helpful for solar panel recycling. All right, thanks, Athena.
All right, so we're going to talk about the overview of the interconnection process, key documents, local requirements, best practices, and a step-by-step walkthrough of a typical system. Next. All right, so if you need additional information, if you're new to town, if you want some references, so on this Austin Energy website, or you can just Google this, downloading a free copy of the design criteria manual can be very beneficial for the revenue side of services. And we also have a section about solar in chapter 12. The distribution interconnection guide is the guide for all the ESS and solar interconnections. And then if you need a DGPA form, you can also get a copy of this if you just happen to be filling out quite a few of them. And then if you ever need any additional guides, we have this on our website here. Next. All right, so reference material. I like to put it in this fashion that because we're a utility company, we must adhere to the design criteria manual first and the dig. And then from there, it can defer you, or if it's not covered in either of these two manuals, you can be deferred to the NEC at that point. So criteria manual provides guidelines, definitions, descriptions for approved Austin City Council design and for Austin Energy. The dig outlines processes for connecting and distribution generation or energy storage, so DER type items, defines minimum technical financial requirements for safe integration of customer-owned power production facilities. The NEC, we have Article 690 for solar PV, we have Article 705 for interconnection power production sources, and we do have Article 706 for energy storage systems. After that, after all that, we do still have a City of Austin ordinance we do adhere to as well for color codes, license requirements, local code requirements, things like that. And then we do have a quick reference guide, Appendix C, page 77 through 79. And then also we have EECP portal homepage for additional incentive information. And then if you're doing a lot of items within the residential and you're talking about you need building information, you're working with a generator, you have some kind of gas things you need information on, you can definitely refer to the International Residential Code, the IRC. Currently, we're using 2021. I'm not sure if the City of Austin has adopted 2024 IRC yet. Next. All right, a day in the life of a solar project. 5 steps: design, permitting, pre-work, install, and inspection at the end. So for design, that usually takes about a week. You're designing based off of the Austin Energy design criteria first, the interconnection guide second, and the NEC third. And then any other loose end items would come out of the IRC. After that, this design, your final design, needs to go to permitting. It needs to be the final design at that point. Anything that says not for construction, if it's supposed to have a PE seal, whether it's commercial or battery installation, any of that, the final design has to go for permitting. So you would take that to DSD, the Development Services Department, in the Austin ABC Building Connect, or if you're commercial, you would have to go through CPR, the Commercial Plan Review Department. Usually the turnaround for commercial, if you do a QT and you qualify for that quick turnaround, is 24 hours. There is a caveat to that QT. It is not reviewed for code compliance. It goes to a building reviewer. They make sure it has an engineered seal and the address matches, and they look at a couple of minor items for building, and that's it. It is not reviewed for electrical technical. And then same thing if you're applying for an auxiliary permit for residential. At this point, there is not a review process just yet. So once you get past your permit and your permit has become active, that's very important. We don't do work without active permits in Austin. That can get you banned from the city. So pre-work, if you need to update the service, solar and batteries are considered an upgrade to the design criteria. So if you need a shutdown, you would have to contact St. Elmo Distribution. And if you are in a predicament where there literally just isn't enough wall space to put the PV meter and disconnect to allow your system to be installed, you may ask Advanced Metering for a meter variance in order to place your meter somewhere that it will fit. For shutdowns, it can be upwards of 3 months. We do have Contractor Disconnect program, but that is a different program all to itself, requires its own training, its own sign up, all that. Meter variances can take up to 2 weeks. Do not build the system until you have that approved meter variance. It's an automatic rejection and denial. You will not get it if you have it built already. And as far as shutdowns go, ask for a shutdown as early as you can to get on the schedule. From that point, you are installing. So you're installing to the interconnection guide and the design criteria. At which pace and how you do it, that is up to your team. If your name is on the permit, the work belongs to you at the end of the day. You are accountable for the workmanship and keeping the permit active. And finally, we're at the end at the inspection. So there is a inspection checklist on page 77 through 79 in the appendix. Inspection wait times, we could be 2 to 3 weeks out. So ask for your inspection as soon as you are actually complete and ready, just so that you can have that. Don't call it in early when you're not ready yet. And then all of a sudden we show up and it's not ready at all because you called it in very early. You used to run into that in DSD quite often, where they would call it in a week in advance, but it came to where we could get there sooner and they weren't ready. We do have to have contractors licensed with the city of Austin and the state of Texas. Electrician must be present at final inspection with license in hand, TECL numbers on the truck. Next. All right, where are we at? All right, so what is different about Austin besides we are just really weird around here? We have a utility design criteria we adhere to and local ordinances. As far as I've heard from all the technicians out in the field, I think there's only a handful of jurisdictions around the whole state that require a PV meter. We are one of them, and we have a list of approved PV meters that we accept. Typically, they all have a bypass handle, but if you Google Austin Energy approved meters, there is a full website for single phase, 3-phase, trans socket, CT. It has a lot of approved meters and part numbers and all that's very good reference material. So just Google Austin Energy approved meter cans. No loads on the solar side of the PV meter. That PV meter reads the solar and the battery. If there's any other loads, it may not read correctly and it might mess with the customer's billing. So be very cautious about that. The whole country operates on black, red, blue. We are red, black, blue in Austin. And same thing for commercial. Most of the country operates on brown, orange, yellow. We operate on brown, yellow, purple. So just bear that in mind. Our design criteria on page 7 and 8 does say red, black, blue. And our City of Austin ordinance also does say red, black, blue. We do require full-size neutral. That's been in the design criteria since Moses etched them in the tablets of time, and we do not allow the 70% D rate for a neutral as the NEC does. It does state in our design, in the interconnect guide, we must use only copper conductors. We do not approve aluminum for PV and ESS installations, and number 6 minimum for the interconnected conductors and the equipment grounding conductor through the meter into the disconnect. Supply side taps, the panel must have a main, and then you must use a 60 amp disconnect minimum because that disconnect has to be rated for suitable for use with service equipment, and the smallest one they make is 60 amps. If you're doing a backfed breaker, you can size it to the circuit, but if you're doing a line side tap, we need that 60 amp minimum with overcurrent fuses in them. 2-inch clearance around the meter can. This is a DCM reference. As a hard number. They will not give you 1/8 of an inch. So definitely don't try to go under 2 inches. Best advice I can give, try to go over 2 inches, just so you never have to worry about that 2-inch clearance around the meter. Address numbers. You just have to have an address on one of the 2 meters, but there has to be an address there or the meter technicians can refuse to install the meter with no address, not adhering to the design criteria. Surge protectors required for all solar installations. They're also required if you're changing out the main panel based off NEC article. It should be in Article 230 services, to where it requires if you change out a panel, you add a surge protector to it. All right, shade requirements. We have to have 75% total solar resource. If asked for a shade analysis, you have 10 business days to submit. Minimum tilt of 5 degrees for all solar installations. Next. All right, what does a good line diagram look like? All right, so what does a good line diagram look like? So we're starting here. Everything is very clearly identified. We've got Austin Energy revenue meter with voltage. Conductors are identified, main breaker. overcurrent devices going to different aspects of the PV and ESS system. Something to note, with solar having a PV meter, we require the solar, since it's a source, to be on the line side of the PV meter so the PV meter reads it correctly for billing. So we have solar array details, breaker locations and sizes, wire sizes. We do require the installation match the design. So if something changes, we will ask you to revise those drawings and have them uploaded to the permit before we can issue the final inspection for that and give the PTO letter and allow the system to operate, all that kind of stuff. So please bring your final design to the table and make sure that is what you want to install. If you do need to change things, that's fine. We just have to hold the inspection until you do get it all updated and changed. Next. All right, site assessment is critical. A qualified electrician should look closely at the existing service prior to the installation to capture upgrade repair costs if necessary. Don't be afraid to ask us for those pre-cons. We do offer one free one. It is part of your permit fee. We do allow that. If you have any questions, I have been here for about 9 months, and the contractors that do utilize the pre-cons do tend to do the best. So don't be afraid to ask. If it's a weird, wacky project, just bring us over there. Sometimes it's worth a good laugh, like, wow, what are you supposed to do with this? All meters and disconnects do have to be grouped in the design criteria. If you look up the word grouped, it should say 20 feet. So you have 20 feet to play with within that grouped. Labels per NEC Article 690 and 705, 2 inches around the meter. They definitely will hold you to that 2 inches. I can tell you from experience. Next. All right, so because the design criteria does consider solar and ESS an upgrade to the service, when you show up on site for your site assessment, if you find items that are not compliant either with criteria, DIG, or NEC, that's your project, that's your baby. You need to fix that, please. So if you find busted service conduits, working clearances, overcurrent devices over stairs, the meter location is under a patio or porch when it's not supposed to be per the design criteria, and then the NEC allows 20 different ways to build a service. The design criteria does shrink it down to 5 different conduit methods, but the rag risers, the SCR cables, are not one of them anymore. So if you see that, it is something that is to be replaced for you to have the solar addition added to it. Next. Okay, design, supply side connections. So we have pictures in the back of the design criteria, and these pictures do hold weight. So bear that in mind. If you are looking for information, don't think these pictures don't. They really do. So supply side tap must be installed in the main panel with a main breaker. You are extending the service, so you do have to have PV meter first, then our lockable AC fuse disconnect. Common errors, solar disconnect 10 feet from the supply side tap for residential, not enough room in the panel as if it were a small panel. And then because you're doing a supply side tap, you do have to have a 60 amp minimum disconnect. Next. All right, supply side connections. So we don't want them to be on curved parts of conductors. We want them to be on the straight part of conductors, rated for the ampacity. So if you have a house that has a larger 300 amp service, make sure you're using the taps for a larger conductor, and then also for a larger service. So don't use taps for a 200 amp service on a 300 amp service. Make sure you use the right taps for the job. And then incorrect placement on curves or using ones not listed for use with service equipment. Next. All right, so when you are designing your solar roofs, are always very different. Even though houses are built the same, they're usually very different roofs, lots of pitches, things like that. Refrain from installing panels that exceed the roof plane. If you do decide, yes, that customer really wants a lot of extra solar and they want to do all that, you do need to get a professional engineer's approval and stamp to exceed that roof line. Next. All right, how to perform a shade analysis, 75% TSRF. We don't rebate poorly performing systems. We rebate well-performing systems. If we request an on-site shade analysis for your project, we are expecting there to be no shade, lots of sun. Or if there is shade, there's going to be something to address that to remove the shade so the solar panels do perform properly. Your analysis should provide a map of where each measurement was taken. Site map should include all nearby shade elements. Provide pictures with shade measurements at each location. Total coverage or total average TSRF for the arrays. Be on site and in person. So you can either do solmetric or drone based, but not Aurora based. List tilts, azimuths, and match project measurements in EECP. To avoid a warning, average TSRF for total system should be 75% or higher. We reserve the right to request that TSRF for specific points. Provide a legitimate shade analysis within 10 business days of request. Next. All right, successful projects will require collaboration between the design and the electrical team. Somebody has to design it and somebody has to install it. At some point or another, both sides have to talk. Common errors, service upgrade requirements not met. That service does need to be up to code. Repair work not caught at the site assessment. When we do come out for pre-con, we will try to catch things that need to be repaired, fixed, upgraded, something like that. Connections not torqued to proper specifications. So loose connections, things like that, or people are using impact drills to tighten down their connections, which is not correct. For rebated projects, system does not meet shading requirements, and then failure to comply with local codes and ordinances. Next, that does include design criteria and the dig. All right, common mistakes. So in your design, you can't always catch everything from an armchair, but once we get out to the field, sometimes we find things that catch on other things. So about a week or two ago, I found both of these little dealies. Granted, that door on that ag panel does come off, but it is still required by the NEC 11026A43 that it is required to open at least 90 degrees. And back on the 2-inch minimum per the design criteria, even if that door comes off, they will still hold it to that 2 inches minimum. So I always suggest to contractors try to go 3 or more if possible. Drilling holes into a meter cans is considered damaging the meter to the design criteria. Oop, go back. So I found this one and it has 4 KO seals in it. And I've seen a couple more just like this. Our meter cans that we require that are approved Austin Energy meter cans are fairly pricey. So please use the holes that come with it. Don't drill your own holes. We do have to just fail the inspection and keep walking. And they are very expensive to replace it and get another one. And I've had contractors do it. They drilled it, got another one, came back and drilled it again. Like, okay, dude. All right. So the DCM language is extremely clear and does state knockout seals are not allowed. All right, next. All right, design metering reminders. Breaker sizing. The main must equal to or less than the meter socket rating. The NEC permits you to have a larger main versus meter, but the design criteria does not. And we do run into this on the other side of the fence with general revenue installations. We did run into this regularly. Chalin and I did on the GSD side. So wire way ahead of billing meter, not allowed for the design criteria either. Once you pass that revenue meter, you can have a wire way and distribute as you see fit, but not ahead of the meter. Splices, taps, and communication wires are not allowed in meter sockets. They have to be ran around it. When your work will alter the service in any form or fashion or be considered an upgrade to the service, you may need to contact distribution metering for feedback before you build. When I was in plan review, we had to tell people, reach out to Austin Energy to verify the design of this service before you build it. And a lot of people would say, oh, nope, we're good. We're going to just build it. And I'm on the other side of the fence now to tell you, like, it's not pretty. So please, if you're in doubt, contact one of us, contact DMO metering. Just let's talk about it. To ensure that that PV meter installation will not get turned down, and then or when you encounter an new service configuration, just call us to talk about it. We like to talk about code and making sure things are right. We like passing inspections more than failing them. Next. Questions. Any questions?
All right. Let me see. We got something in the chat. Oh, it looks like Jalen answered it, but I'll read it just so everybody knows. If we are interconnecting the solar via a back feed breaker in the main electrical panel, does the AC disconnect by the meter need to be fused, or is a non-fused knife switch disconnect accessible? And so Chalin says, good question. In the interconnection guide, page 33, number 7 gives the necessary information for disconnects. If fused, 60 amp required for supply taps. However, a load breaker disconnect in general, as required, is a handled blade disconnect. Awesome. Okay. Again, answer more questions in the chat. We'll read them out loud if you guys need to. Now's the time. If you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you. All right. Let's move on.
Morning, everybody. All right, permitting. Permit, City of Austin Building and Trade Contractor Services. We have permit types, the work type. We need electrical permit, which is all auxiliary permits. Remember, the auxiliary permits are also the pre-wires for solar. Installation of solar and other distributed energy resources. The pre-wires are also auxiliary, and we do inspect those, and that is even in the ETJ. Meaning the permit would be pulled if you're in another jurisdiction that Austin Energy supplies power to. I believe Westlake would be a comparison. They have their own permitting, and we have our permitting for the services. The solar permit would be under our jurisdiction as well. So keep that in mind when you're in the ETJ areas. Ground mount solar shingles, construction integrated solar, commercial jobs all need a building permit. If you're doing an upgrade, panel change out, updating the service outside of the solar project, you need a regular electrical permit. The repair versus upgrade. A repair is more for you're changing your panel. The upgrade is when you're changing meter and panel. Please be aware, a lot of older meters are out here now. They are old and not updated. If it's got the old style meter and it's more than 20 years old, you most likely will need to upgrade that service and update it to today's specifications. Hopefully soon we get that in writing to the actual age length and try to give better direction. If you have any questions, you are welcome to contact any of us, and we can try to direct you in the most successful manner. Next slide. All solar and ESS projects in Austin Energy Territory require auxiliary power permit from City of Austin, even if outside the city limits. Well, I guess I already said that, right? We will not perform inspections or set the PV meter without this permit. We shouldn't be performing work without a permit. So, again, you get out on a project, and if it says Austin Energy on that meter can, we should have an Austin permit for that project. When you apply for this permit, use the following language for the permit description field. Your permit description is really important. Please make sure it's correct and covers the entire scope of the work performed under that permit. I believe there's some miscommunication, but when you're doing a pre-wire, that's not, if the permit says pre-wire, then that's all it's going to entail. If you're doing more than that, then make sure to contact the permit office and see if they can change the wording and assist you to make sure that everything is clear. A project includes energy storage. Use language above, but change solar system to the number of uh, solar and the size of the energy storage system. If using supply side tap for interconnection, include the language supply side tap for PV and or ESS with the size of the system. Language is important on all y'all's permits. Please keep that in mind. It keeps everybody with a clear understanding. Do not still install until you have a permit. Solar and energy storage systems do not receive a formal electrical plan review for residential or commercial jobs. If you have questions and if your plans are not typical, please request a 100 from us. Let us all get together so we have time to look at things to catch common errors. Work on electric service. Example, upgrade or repair requires separate electrical permit that must be closed before requesting final solar. If it's not closed, we can't give you a final. That is a different scope. And if that didn't pass and we gave you a final, you would have to rework the solar. So it's not just a rule, it's good practice for success. We like to see passing as much as possible, as CJ mentioned earlier. Must pay reinspection fee before requesting the reinspection. Please be aware on the ABC portal, when you're requesting your inspections, double check, make sure all fees are covered. Rebated project, subcontractors may not pull the auxiliary power permit. This system must be contracted and permitted by the same participating contractor. Common errors, permit not pulled before commencing electrical work. Unpaid fees on permits and service permit still open with solar inspection requested. Permit is expired. Please double check your permits that they're not expired. It takes time and you guys delay your customer from benefiting from the solar. Ordinance 80.39A4, that's the electrical ordinance. And I'm not sure why we didn't put any wording there. 9.4, perform electrical work without the required license or permit classification is what that is. All right, next slide. Distributed generation planning application, DDPA. 25K to 500K requires review by Austin Energy Solar Team. Submitted to the DGPA review for approval prior to applying for permit. Once approved, submit with permit application. Less than 50 requires review by Austin Energy Solar Team. Please also attach one-line drawings and design. If it's got energy storage, that one-line drawing and design must be stamped by an engineer as well. 500 kW requires review by Austin Energy's DER integration team. Here's the email to submit it to for hosting capacity analysis. On the downtown network, any size requires review by Austin Energy's DER integration team. Email same as above. To find out if you're in the downtown network, see Appendix A of the Distribution and Interconnection Guide on page 59. I believe there's also the same map that's in the Austin Energy criteria. If you get into the downtown network, just be aware of those maps and double check. There's the feasibility team will be full of information, and we all enjoy those projects that take more information. Next slide. Meter variance when the request before you install. If you cannot place the meter grouped according to the Austin Energy design criteria, and your technician in the field is noticing that it's going to be more than 20 feet or it's going to be out of sight behind the gate, please request that variance right away. How to request, you send an email to the AE Advanced Metering Engineering with the following information. There is a variance request form you can upload. You will upload a one line drawing with all existing and new proposed meters. The placard language describing alternate location, supporting documents that explain why alternate location is needed. Upload approved variance request to the permit. That would be the approved, signed, put it on the ABC permit so that the inspector can see it, and we're past that step right away. Requests are not always granted. We've seen that, and there are oftentimes ways of grouping that, the design could have been improved to have a group. There are times where it's worth asking for the variance. Just be mindful of that before building anything. Controlled outage, when to request prior to any install that requires Austin Energy shutdown. Must pull electrical repair or upgrade permit. How to request a controlled outage. Got the email there. We got the phone number there. The office is real busy. Sometimes they don't respond right away. It is up to 3-month delay for the outage. So when you're doing a site survey before installation, you want to keep that in mind. Requesting that outage sooner than later. You provide your permit number, so when you need an outage, you're gonna pull a repair or a upgrade permit. You're gonna have that permit number. You're gonna provide them with all that information. If you're registered for the contractor disconnect program, follow the instructions on this page and perform the disconnect yourself once you have permission. If you're not part of that contractor disconnect program, I highly recommend looking into it. There is a small class to take and your company gets registered. It can make life quite a bit easier. Next page. Need a variance. When do you need it? Oh, the first picture on the left, you see the gate. If we were at a different angle, you wouldn't be able to see the PV meter. From this angle, we can see it all, but a variance is still needed. There's physical, visual blocking between those 2 meters. When you don't need a variance, you can see there 20-foot maximum distance. It's all visible on one wall. That picture there, you can see the regulator on the gas meter coming in. They opted to move the meter far to the right to have the clearance of that regulator as required. Next slide.
All right, current transformer CT meter. So this inspection requesting process is different. If an instrument rated CT meter will be used, contact the distribution metering team to schedule a CT inspection meter installation when the PV system is installed, but before requesting final inspection. If the complex metering has not been installed, inspected, we can't approve the final inspection. So we have to have the metering taken care of well in advance and see that dark green tag on either a trans socket or a current transformer CT type meter. Rule of thumb, CT meters required for installation is 350 amps or 225 amp three phase, but you can't just default to a CT meter. If the metering team okays you to do so for a smaller 400 or 600 amp service, that's fine. But if the criteria requires it to be a trans socket, you cannot just say, I want to use a CT meter because they're readily available. That approval comes from the meter shop. The CT meters have windings inside to transform current from large current to small current that the meter can actually read. In this case, there will be a multiplier on the customer's bill. It only applies to commercial installations. Austin Energy will not provide a CT. Customer must provide CTs for solar projects. And don't forget, the dot always faces the source. If this is a solar service or a solar meter, the dot has to face the solar source. If this is for a CT for the grid, the dot has to face the grid. Okay, next. All right, how to request an inspection. That elusive meter shop, I tell you. All instrument rated PVs are required to have a CT inspection. The customer must request a CT inspection through AEDMO, AEDMO dispatch at austinenergy.com. The CT meter must not be energized prior to the metering inspection. They will walk away and fail your inspection if it's energized. Once the CT passes, dispatch will order meters to be programmed. Once they're programmed, dispatch is notified and the meters are released for install. Dispatch updates the internal billing system to include the new net billing meter. The operations techs have 5 days to wire the CTs and install the CT meter. After that, contractors are eligible to request the final inspection. Next. All right, meters must be grouped 24 hours, accessible 24 hours a day, grouped within 20 feet, 3 feet of clearance in front of the meter, 2 inches around the meter, and then we do have a minimum and maximum height. So 30 inches minimum, so down around your knee to the center, and then if it's over head height when an inspector comes out, if we have to look up to see it, it's probably too high. 72 inches to center is the highest it's allowed to go. If you find a cut seal, please report it. When you come to do your site assessment, please check the revenue meter for a cut seal. When we come out for inspection, if there's a cut seal, everyone always says it's like that when we got here. Then why didn't you report it? Because now I have to report you for potentially cutting this seal, and the meter shop has to investigate it now. So if you find a cut seal when you get there, report it immediately. Common metering errors. So the revenue meter has to be wired with the grid on the line side. A PV meter has to be wired in the opposite orientation. The PV as the source has to be on the line side. Meter being behind a locked gate will not work. They want it to be either unlocked so they can get to it if it's existing, or up in the front if it's new. Temporary meter left instead of a permanent meter. You cannot leave temporary meters, test meters, anything like that in there. Knocking your own holes in the meter can, and using plastic or wood anchors we do not allow. Next. Okay, so just some examples. 3 feet minimum from any kind of gas meter regulator riser. Minimum 30 inches, maximum 72. Utility meter and PV meter in this situation are grouped together with the main panel, surge protective device. And then over here on the right, here's an example of standing in front of it. You should have a full 36 inches to walk in front of it with no obstructions or issues, and full headspace to walk in front of it. Next. All right. The design criteria and our dig do require the neutral to be isolated in the PV meter and in the AC disconnect for testing purposes. Polaris taps are used for this, but we do not want any additional bonds in the meter can or in the main disconnect that are not required. Next. If your existing service is questionable, please request a pre-con meeting. We see all kinds of things out there. We've seen services that had sheds built around it. We've seen covered in plants, grass, debris, rag risers, stuff that's just fallen apart, stuff that's way too cluttered on a wall, just all kinds of old weird installations. So just if you have a question, please request that pre-con. Next. All right, roof work common mistakes. Roof penetration is not properly flashed. Whenever you penetrate through a roof of any kind, you have to have that weather sealed. Poor wire management. If we look up to see your array and it looks like a bowl of spaghetti, that's not good wire management. NEC requires an inch above the roof line. Use of material not outdoor or UV rated. Carflex on a roof is not rated for sunlight typically, and we require EMT conduit at that point. Unfastened modules, junction boxes, conduit. I have gotten on a roof and slid an entire array. I don't generally tend to get on roofs, but whenever I find a dozen items down by the service, I can't help myself but think there's probably issues on the roof. Not all fittings made wrench tight. If I walk up, Chalin walks up, and we barely touch the fittings and they're loose, that's not wrench tight per Article 358 of the NEC. All metal not bonded back to the service. We want everything bonded to go back to the service or to that first disconnect of the line side tap. But everything has to be bonded together to go back to that overcurrent device. And we may ask for photos of work at final inspection, roof photos, grounding photos, attic photos, and we'll want to see those photos all grouped together so we know that's the attic of that house, that's the roof of that house that we're at, or this is the roof of this building or something. So we may request those photos. Next. All right, questions.
All right. So let's see. At the time, you need power off to perform safety electrical work on utility side of main, either performing an upgrade, replacing a meter and main disconnect, or a repair placing main disconnect. Only you will need to request a shutdown. Oh, sorry, that was the answer from Chalin. The question was, can you use an upgrade permit to request a shutdown? So thank you, Chalin, for answering that. And then so just further clarification on that, are we able to request a shutdown with an upgrade permit or just a repair? And Chalin, thank you for answering again, both. For commercial jobs, shutdowns work can also be performed under a room model permit, should be tied to your plan review permit. All right, cool. So then Gus asks, how can we get a meter CT wiring diagram for commercial project? And if you guys have specific questions, go ahead and send in a question to either solar or solar inspections at, and then we can get you on that with those specific answers. So if you have a specific question, give us that address. We'll help you out with that. Cool. Other than that, I don't see any other questions. I don't see any hands raised. So
Be-
let's move on.
be- Before we move on the commercial job shutdowns, if you're going to do a repair or anything on a commercial job, I know that Austin Energy now has a plan review process for commercial services. However, if your permit did not go through that process, it would behoove you to contact an inspector to see if there's any awareness of your project that we could assist you in to prevent any delay. There's always small things that, the DSD inspector may pass that service. The technician turning on and off your power is not an inspector. And if things are not identified at that time, that should have been, it can delay your project as well and create more work. So please reach out on your commercial services. It would be best to just at least schedule 100 so that we can assist to make sure that there'll be no backpedaling on your project. That's all. And we can go to slide 43.
Thank you, Jalen.
Commonly required signage. The NEC has a list. In our interconnection guide, we have a few. The signage is important. This is important to technicians that are going to be servicing this equipment. This is important for the safety crews, fire, ambulance, police that may need to turn things off. I've heard some people say there's too much. I believe if we just follow the guidelines and place them in proper locations, it becomes very quickly evident that there's ways of turning power off to save a life or property damage. Next slide. ESS location and placard. Within sight and within 50 feet, a plaque is not required. You can see here on that photo, there's not a gate in the way like there was on the other one. You don't necessarily stand in front of that revenue and identify the ESS, but at the revenue there is a required sticker that says there is an ESS and a shut off, and person takes 2 steps and they can see everything. If there was a gate or anything in between, a placard would be required. You can see the photo on the right. Requires a plaque showing location of batteries. This is for safety personnel. They need to know that there's storage on site. It could help them save a structure. Next slide. ESS installation in garages. Garages must be finished, separated from the dwelling unit, i.e. habitable areas. Attached garages containing ESS must have listed heat alarm or detector interconnected with smoke alarms in dwelling unit. ESS must be protected using approved barriers if in the vehicle drive path. Heat alarm or detectors has been a difficult thing for some, including ourselves. Different people have found different equipment that interconnects with a dwelling unit. Sometimes getting with the manufacturer of the detectors that are already existing in the dwelling unit could help you resolve that issue. Next slide. ESS must be UL 9540 listed. ESS may not be installed anywhere in a dwelling unit, habitable area, bedroom, closet, etc. If installing batteries in AFD territory, Austin Fire Department, send plans to AFD Hazmat for review when individual ESS units are greater than 20 kilowatt hours, or when total ESS installation is greater than 80 kilowatt hours. Do not submit plans to AFD otherwise. Not sure what jurisdiction you're in? There's a map right there. Click on it, you will be able to see. ESS projects must have plans reviewed and endorsed by a Texas licensed professional engineer. To be attached to the auxiliary permit and present at final inspection. Plan sets will be uploaded to the auxiliary power permit and will be reviewed at time of inspection. We do not review plans prior to arriving on your project. Inspection will be failed if the endorsement is not present or does not appear authentic. Always review manufacturer's instructions before installing. Next slide, please. Do you want me to take it?
Thanks, Shaylin.
Who was that? There you are, Megan.
Can you hear me?
Hey, you sound hollow. Um, how
Like
to
you're in a fishbowl.
I know. Your mic is not functioning. Yeah. How to request an inspection. Go to austinenergy.com, go solar inspections. Inspection form is embedded in this page. Fill out all required fields. Additional fields may appear depending on your selection and the type of inspection. Use file upload field to attach electrical plans, photos for inspector. Once submitted, solar team will receive data and send inspection notifications via Smartsheet. Battery located on solar side of PV meter. Yes, if solar feeds ESS before being metered. Please fill out the required fields properly. This is ongoing delay sometimes when we don't have a proper phone number to contact for our inspection. An ongoing delay when the email is not filled out properly and we notified that we have an inspection. Please be aware of these things. They're really key. Communication is most important on all these projects to help you succeed. If we don't have the right information to communicate with, then there's a big barrier. Next slide. ESS loads behind the PV meter. Indicate yes on the solar inspections request form here. Metering. It is possible you will need 2 AE meters for a solar installation with batteries behind the PV meter, and your team will want to indicate this on the initial permit request. If as-built design is different from initial permitted plan set, please add the total system size during final inspection request, including any existing PV, and confirm battery capacity sizes too. With multiple billing meters and batteries online, customers' billing can be confusing. I know I get confused when everybody talks about it. Bottom line, AE customers are billed for 100% of their consumption and credited 100% for their solar production, even with battery storage. Next slide. I think, Megan, if your speaker works, this will be a better one for you because you understand
Let's
it.
see. Can you guys hear me or do I sound like I'm in a fishbowl somewhere?
Oh,
It's funny
fishbowl.
because I haven't moved since this morning, so I don't know how it changed, but here we are. All right. So the new ABNC portal is now live. I am curious, quick show of hands who's used it yet. If you guys could just use your React buttons and or raise hands. I just am curious. Yeah, if you guys have seen it. If you guys have feedback or comments, please feel free to reach out. In my opinion, it's fairly easy to use just because there's a lot of that same information that you guys were looking for before. However, some of the search features I think are somewhat improved in that you can, now search for addresses or permits all together when you're looking for that public search. So when you have a permit, or sorry, when you have a project that you are submitting for a final inspection, be sure to do that first because that will be our first step as well to make sure all the permitting looks good. And then once it does, assuming there's no other repair, electrical permits or upgrade permits that are open, no other shutdown work is needed and everything is closed out, we can schedule that final solar inspection. Again, as Isela pointed out, thank you for that. That will only be through that form. So you will still be scheduling solar inspections through the form stack form, not on Austin Building Connect. But so far, this is a pretty great resource and seems to be pretty clear. All right, I think we're good here. Next slide, please. All right, Shaylin, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Pre-installation inspections, roughs and pre-cons. Rough inspection, when is it required? If conduit will not be visible, accessible at time of final electrical inspection, you need to call in a rough. All electrical work must be made visible to the inspector for inspection. Trenching, in walls, etc. Pre-construction 100 meeting. Oh, hold on. Rough inspections. Also, if you have a large commercial project, one that could take a day for an inspector to go through or a half a day, let's request a rough-in inspection midway through the roof install. Let's work together and, have as many inspections as necessary to utilize us to assist you to make sure you're successful and the final goes smoothly. Pre-construction, on-site consultation with Austin Energy Inspector on design and interconnection requirements. Request when you have a complex setup or want full feedback on your plans. It is required for commercial projects. Or if interconnecting on utility side of billing meter, highly recommended for new contractors and anyone struggling with inspection pass rate. We're not here to train or teach all of your technicians. We are here to help everybody succeed. If there is a contractor out here struggling, use a 100. Let's get everybody educated on the same page. We're here to make sure you pass. Before requesting, please have active auxiliary power permit and finished drawings. It's next page. Pre-wire only for future solar. This is aux permit and it's only for pre-wire. Austin Energy inspects all pre-wire installations in its territory, whether residential or commercial, inside and outside of city limits. If we are supplying the power to your project, we will need to inspect the pre-wire only. Fill out DGPA, select only pre-wire for solar in section C. Do not enter any capacity info. Obtain an auxiliary power electrical permit with pre-wire for solar and permit description. In the solar inspection request form, select pre-wire for solar as inspection request type. Inspection pass result will serve as a reference for any future solar project at that site. In other words, we will be able to pull up the history of permits and identify that the pre-wire was done and passed, and any installation after will not have to worry about it. Next slide. Inspection notifications with Smartsheet. How do Smartsheet communications work? It's a good question. You and your customer will receive emails when inspection is requested, postponed, scheduled, and pass failed, and when PV meter is installed. If inspection fails, deficiencies will be reported in the confirmation email. Sender will be Austin Energy Solar Inspections or inspector name via Smartsheet. Add automation app smartsheet.com as safe sender to ensure messages do not go to spam. Check with your IT team to ensure Smartsheet domain is on your email allow list. Email solar inspections at austinenergy.com with inspection related questions. The inspection request form, to have that email correct, will make sure this email goes to you so you have all the required information of the deficiencies so that you're able to quickly handle that and request another inspection. Note, if multiple inspections are scheduled, completed for same contractor at same time, Smartsheet combines the notifications for all inspections in one email. Inspection notifications with Smartsheet. Your pre-construction meeting was requested. The email there, your Austin Energy final inspection is scheduled, and you got an email there.
All
Good.
right, so you think you can pass an electrical inspection, but can you pass an electrical inspection like a rock star? CJ knows how. All right, so let's start by sending the correct person. It has happened over and over that I will show up and that job has failed before I get out of my car. That's really wrong. If I can see you have wrong meter, no meter from the street, vehicles unmarked, and I get out of my car and go over to ask for their license and they hand me no license or an apprentice license, it's an automatic fail right there. So send the correct person. Send a master, send a journeyman, or a residential wireman for residential projects. Come prepared. Bring your wiring diagram, bring your one line, bring ballast information if it's on commercial projects. Bring the full set of drawings if it's a commercial project. You can bring the physical drawings or you can bring the digital drawings, phone, tablet, that kind of stuff. We'll verify the address, we'll verify the seal if required. Bring your layout, bring everything you need to show us this is the project that you're installing on. Have your license on hand, have your TECL number on the vehicle. And then also just have some tools to make the corrections. I've had people that I needed one correction and they just didn't want to do anything. Like, okay, I will go now. Next slide. All right, before installation, refer to that distribution interconnection guide. A lot of people just don't want to adhere to it. It's part of Austin Energy, just like the design criteria. It's part of Austin Energy. We have to adhere to it. If you have questions, if you're unsure, you're reading something in the dig, you're not sure what it means, just talk to one of us. Send us an email at Solar Inspections, or if you have our email, email us, call us. We like to talk about it. We like to see everybody succeed. We really do. All right, so before a final inspection, calling for a final without being ready is a violation of City Ordinance 80.40D. You do that too many times, you get too many fails for that, it can go under investigation. You can lose your right to pull permits in the city of Austin for a set amount of time. Test the system, but do not leave the test meter in. If you leave it in and running, the revenue meter will actually bill them as if that solar on the roof is a really big appliance, and it sure is running a lot. Perform a full quality check. Go through and walk the project. Make sure it meets the dig. Make sure it meets the criteria. And then at the end of the day, make sure it still meets code and manufacturer's instructions. Use the contractor quick reference guide if you're just like, I just don't know, and you're just not sure where to start maybe on a real complex one. Get that guide out and just start going down the checklist. Rebate projects, receive the solar rebate confirmation letter plus close installation step in EECP. And then common errors, non-performing systems, meaning they just don't work. Every now and again we have a rapid shutdown that doesn't engage. We have systems that won't pair and show communication to the microinverters or to the to the microinverters. Poor cable management, looks like a bowl of spaghetti on the roof, or the bolts on the panels aren't in, and you can see that the modules are crooked. They're not firmly fastened in place. Missing placards or labels, or not using ones rated for outdoor elements. I've seen stick-on labels that are already peeling and shriveling just because of our wonderful Texas sun. Installed system does not match the design drawing. It's either completely different, it's a different address, it is everything's just backwards. We just need you to update the drawing and we can issue that final inspection pending everything else goes well. Wire sizing, we do have a required wire sizing per the dig and through NEC Article 705, number 6 minimum. Loose wiring connections. I'm a tugger. I tug on wires. I don't go crazy gorilla strength on them, but I do give them a little tug to make sure they're firmly in there. I've been a service tech. I know loose connections cause service calls, so I don't like that at all. Meter service clearances not met. That 2 inches, it is a hard number. Don't play with it. And meter guidelines not met and variances not requested. It is a meter variance form. Variance meaning something different than normal. It is not a build it and ask for forgiveness form. It does not work like that. And we've had a lot of people believe it is that, or an ease of installation form. And with the meter shop changing their tune and trying to kind of clamp down on it a little bit more, variances are not as often as they used to be. So just be prepared. If you think you can put the meter with the service, just go ahead and put it there. Next. Questions.
All right.
I've seen a hand up for a while. Yeah.
Yes. Shamika Jackson. Looks like your hand's up. If you have any questions, go ahead and type them in the chat or unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think that's just from the participating in the new portal.
Ah, okay. So if you have participated in the portal, thanks. Cool. Okay, so disregard. All right, got it. Cool. Okay, any questions? No new questions in chat. Don't see any new hands. All right, let's keep going. Contacts and helpful links. Kim.
All right, good morning. So here we have a list of our contacts and helpful links. A lot of our information is here. If you ever just can't find it, you can always use this resource, this presentation, to find our helpful links and contact information. Next slide. All right. In addition to that, here are some more contact information. One thing we want to point out to you is the meter variance email has changed. It has been updated. So if you've used this in the past, if you've reached out in the past, make sure you update your records because this is the new email address. Next slide. Okay, we also have some more helpful links here as well. Again, if you ever just need to know where the resources are, visit this presentation, or you can always reach out to us and we'll be able to direct you to where you need to go.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. Again, those helpful links in the chat. This will also be sent to everyone after the meeting. I'm going to go ahead and put the attendance link one more time just so it's at the bottom of the chat. And if you haven't, please sign in. That's how we're capturing attendance, is through the that link there. Yes, and unless you have any other questions, that is the end of our presentation. So thank you so much for being here. And again, if you have any other questions on specific projects, you can just email us solar@austenergy.com. Solarinspections@austenergy.com is also there. Yes, solarinspections@austenergy.com. We do have a question. I have revised engineering plans and I need to get it approved. Should I upload it to the A, B, and C portal? And the answer is yes. Oh, thanks, Megan. Yes. Yes, please add it to your permit. Great questions. With that, I'll stay on for the next maybe like 5 minutes. But if there's no questions, thank you for your time. What is, oh, sorry. Okay, so what is the review time for revised engineering plans? Great question. So we, oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead, CJ.
I was going to ask, are you talking about through your actual PE? I think that's on the firm as to how long it takes a firm to update a set of drawings and stamp it.
So once it's been in the ABC portal, then how long does it take for engineering to review it? Yeah, that's true. It would be their engineering team that would have to review it. So we don't have any visibility on that,
Right.
unfortunately.
Actually, come to think of it, we literally have no visibility on it. It's however long the review takes through the design team, unfortunately. Even when I was in plan review, we had no visibility on how long it takes AE design to review at that point. You could ask metering. They do have their own plan review team, and they might have a little more transparency on that of like days or weeks. But from our end, they don't give us any of that information.
Yes, so definitely check with the design team and they can probably give you a better answer on those wait times. Thanks, CJ.
Mhm.
Awesome. All right, so like I said, I'll stay here for the next, till couple minutes here, but if everyone is good, feel free to drop.
All right, we are off for some fun inspections. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.